It was a beautiful day in Sardinia, the second largest Italian island in the Mediterranean. The sea was clear, the air was hot, and the beaches were golden. But the Cagliari Diving Club couldn't see any of that. They were roughly 250 meters underneath the Mediterranean Sea. Given the rich and extensive history of the area, they were sure to find some interesting historical artifacts on the ocean floor. And they were indeed about to find something incredible. But this history wasn't quite as dead as some old Roman pottery. Paolo Bonicelli, the most experienced diver, was the deepest of all. They decided to be a little more ambitious this time than in previous dives. 20 miles off the Sardinian coast. For Paolo, it was uncharted territory. So you could only imagine how amazed and delighted he was when he saw the shape of what seemed like a small town beneath the water. Old stone buildings in a classic Roman or Grecian style, with roofs made of thatched seaweed. He gestured to his fellow divers to follow him. They were amazed at how well preserved the buildings seemed to be, as though they were still being lived in and actively maintained to this day, despite being around 300 meters underwater. If they were able to take some pictures and collect some artifacts, they'd be the talk of the local historic community, and probably be able to finagle a payout from the whole experience too. That's when Paolo spotted something truly amazing. A larger, more impressive structure, like a miniature palace surrounded by grandiose statues of humanoid figures in a circle around the little palace. Each of the statues was an imposing 5 meters tall, with a faint golden light emanating from each of them. While the statues were humanoid, they definitely weren't human. Their features were strange and fish-like. Scales, gills, tentacles. Paolo was in awe at the sight of them. He took pictures and got closer. There was also a huge chasm in front of the building, perhaps some kind of underwater thermal vent. Paolo was curious. He wanted to investigate further. He swam deeper and deeper. What was at the bottom of that chasm? But lucky for Paolo, he would never see what was at the bottom of that chasm. Before he could reach it, something intercepted him from the side, something large and fast. He felt a white-hot flash of pain as claws raked across his chest, tearing open the rubber of his wetsuit. Paolo turned, eyes widening in horror to see a creature staring at him. Like the statues, it was humanoid but not human, an anthropomorphic sea monster with greenish skin, its arms and legs coated in thin scales, its neck serrated into fleshy gills. He could see scraps of his suit's rubber hanging from its claws. It bore a mouthful of fangs and gave a silent but threatening snarl. Paolo could see something in the distance behind this creature. More figures, like this one, emerging from the murk, getting faster, getting closer. Paolo was a smart man, but it didn't take a genius to realize that if he stuck around, something terrible was about to happen to him and the rest of the Cagliari Diving Club. He turned and fled, paddling with all his might away from the coming legion of aquatic beasts. The rest of the club saw the experienced diver panicking and followed his lead. Thanks to their quick thinking and expertise, they all managed to escape with their lives and only a few minor injuries. But they had no idea of the true extent of the mystery they were leaving behind beneath the sea. The multiverse is a big place. There are alternate universes where the Devourer of Worlds escapes and destroys everything we love and hold dear. There are alternate universes where the SCP Foundation has gone haywire and attempted to wipe out humanity through controlled releases of all their anomalies. There are even universes where a kill squad sent by the Chaos Insurgency hunts down and assassinates every member of the O5 Council before replacing them and leading the Foundation into a bold new era. And there are some universes where the SCP Foundation is Italian. We've covered SCP-057 on this channel before in our video on the most frightening rooms in the SCP universe, but you've never seen this SCP-057, because this is the Italian version, SCP-057-IT. This localized anomaly off the coast of Sardinia is under the purview of the Italian division of the SCP Foundation. which works autonomously with its own systems and terminology. This SCP isn't a frightening room that crushes its trapped victims together. This anomaly is an entire city 300 meters beneath the water of the Mediterranean Sea. Everyone has heard of the mythical lost city of Atlantis, a supposed underwater utopia outlined by such great historical minds as the ancient Greek philosopher Plato. It's something that people fantasize about. A beautiful, idyllic society under the sea, divorced from all the petty squabbles we deal with up on land. But is everything really better down where it's wetter? Let's take a look and see. When Paolo and the rest of the Cagliari Diving Club returned to the surface, they were happy to tell anyone that would listen that they encountered aggressive mermen and an entire underwater city off the coast of Sardinia. They even posted their photos onto their official Facebook page, along with photos of Paolo's gnarly chest scars. That's when the Italian branch of the SCP Foundation finally discovered them and decided to intervene. The Foundation dispatched an SIR squad known as Oreria Notatia. SIRs are the intelligence and research section of the Italian SCP Foundation, a kind of mobile task force that investigates possible informational leads. Paolo and his team were given amnestic treatment, and any evidence that they'd collected was scrubbed from existence. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Marco Levini, leader of the mobile task force SSM-2 squad, aka Legio Atlantides, was being dispatched to the source of the problem, SCP-057-IT itself. What started off as a relatively straightforward exploratory mission soon took an extremely strange turn. Levini and his men reported activity down in the underwater city, observing from the safety of their armored Foundation submarine. While the aquatic humanoids living in 057-IT were undeniably the same species, their cultures seemed to be split up into two unique groups. One group had thinner scales on their arms and legs. This group was more numerous, having at least 60 active specimens, and was characterized by their extreme aggression towards any outsiders. As for the smaller group, they had thicker scales, as well as a number of eerily consistent injuries to their hands, feet, and gills. They were also distinct from the thin scales in terms of behavior, as they were a far friendlier, more curious bunch. At times, members of this subset would approach the submarine and regard it with detached fascination. Sometimes they would even point at the submarine and laugh, though their reasons for doing this are unknown. Eventually, Lieutenant Levini was so confident in their safety around the merpeople that he and a few other team members decided to disembark from the submarine on a diving excursion and properly explore the aquatic city below. This would prove to be a dangerous tactical error on Levini's part. During what seemed like a routine exploratory mission, Levini was ambushed by a squadron of thin scales, grabbed from behind and kidnapped. He was taken as a hostage and spirited away into one of the city's various buildings, where a thick scale known as Letizia acted as his warden. But Levini soon found that being under Letizia's care was a profoundly lucky turn of events on his part, both because it allowed him to learn more about the situation, and because she was one of the small group left in the city who hadn't become dangerous fanatics. That's right, the merpeople were in the middle of a heated civil war. Both from the observations of Levini during his captivity and later interviews conducted by project head Dr. Giuseppe Pistillo with some liberated members of the Thick Scales, they learned that a terrible religious conflict had broken out in SCP-057-IT. The accounts coming from the rescued citizens illustrated a similar backstory to what the Italian Foundation had theorized regarding the merpeople. They were the descendants of people that lived on the island of Nisros up to the 14th century BCE, before it was devastated by a volcanic eruption, forcing them into the ocean, where they evolved the ability to live in aquatic environments through anomalous means. Since this change, this new species had been operating in Mediterranean waters, migrating regularly in order to avoid detection, passing their way of life from generation to generation as the world changed and shifted above them. In many ways, they were quite similar to humans, such as their reproductive habits. They mate and reproduce after a gestation period, more like animals than fish, though their gestation period is slightly shorter than human beings at 6 months. They largely speak Latin, though the oldest merperson among them also speaks ancient Greek. Merchildren born in Foundation containment have shown strong language acquisition skills, as they have proven more than able to learn modern Italian. and even more fascinating from a standpoint of sociological study. The merpeople have formed their own unique culture under the sea, and this is where the problems started. Abstaining from the belief of the Greek and Roman pantheons their ancestors looked up to, the merpeople instead worshipped their own group of water-bound deities, whose images were reflected in the great statues in the center of the town. The large building near the statues and the chasm was the home of the mayor, the town's de facto leader. However, what had been a workable system for centuries began falling to ruin when a strange religious fanaticism began to spread. A cult-like group soon formed and began holding ceremonies where they worshipped a powerful entity in the chasm known as the Great Eye. This new cult was known as the Cult of the Great Eye of the Mediterranean, or SCP-057 for short. What began as a fringe belief soon became a frenzy and took over the better part of the town, with the acolytes of the Great Eye proving themselves more than willing to spread the gospel of their new deity with violence. Some of the more arduous non-believers were killed for their heresy, while others were simply ritualistically mutilated in order to prevent them from rebelling. Letizia had her own evidence of these targeted mutilations. The thin scales had cut the aquatic webbing from between her fingers and toes, making it harder for her to swim away and escape. Other suspected heretics were given the same treatment. The reason the thick scales even had thicker scales was that they stole forbidden technology from the mayor to increase the strength of their scales, hoping it would help them better withstand the torments of the acolytes. Those involved in the stealing of this technology were captured and summarily executed for their acts of defiance. In a sense, Letizia was protecting Lavini by advising him against trying to escape, knowing the acolytes of the Great Eye would kill him if he did. She knew that the only opportunity for escape would come during the ceremony held by the acolytes to honor their frightening master. When the day eventually came, as Lavini was running low on everything from food to oxygen, everyone in the town was forced out into the town center to witness the ritual. The acolytes gathered around the chasm and began to chant in a frightening, unknown language. As they chanted, a blinding light began to emanate from the chasm, and as blurry shapes emerged, nightmarish tentacled gastropods soon began to take form. Truly Lovecraftian undersea monsters. Shortly after the ritual, Lavini and the Thick Scales were able to make a break for it, pursued by the acolytes of the Great Eye. It was a close one, but thankfully due to the intervention and assistance of a trained mobile task force, the fanatical forces of the acolytes were repelled and the fleeing merpeople, along with Lavini, were rescued. A number of Thick Scales are now willingly confined at Site Nettuno, an Italian Foundation containment site, where they have undergone numerous interviews with Foundation staff. Incidentally, among them is the oldest merperson previously present in SCP-057-IT, the only one who spoke ancient Greek fluently. He was different from the others, extremely different. In fact, he was a deity made into flesh, one of the deities replaced by the worshippers of the Great Eye. This unfortunate former god had done everything to keep his people's lives safe and peaceful, but in spite of his wisdom and best efforts, hell had once again broken loose. Not everything is all well and good in SCP-057-IT. Even if a human's body changes, their nature does not. And the worst parts of human nature seemingly followed these unfortunate merpeople into what should have been their paradise under the sea. But all hope isn't lost. If you were to judge the entire human race on one community in turmoil, you probably wouldn't leave with a very favorable impression of us either. Correspondence with a French branch of the SCP Foundation reveals that mer creatures aren't just localized to one warring underwater city in Sardinia. Mermaids have also been discovered and confirmed by Foundation field agents off the coast of France. 80% of the ocean still remains unmapped to this day. Who knows what else is out there, just waiting to be found. Now go check out the Horror of Body-Stealing Rain SCP-3300 and SCP-1861 The Crew of the HMS Wintersheimer for more water-based horrors from the SCP Foundation.